whenever we make any decision, it's not, should I do this or not? Or not is not the next best alternative. And so when you think about making money decisions, don't just think about, or you might say to yourself, oh, I'll go on vacation when I have extra money, or I'll do that when well, we never have extra money. And so when you're thinking about making money decisions, it's not should I save or not? It's should I save or should I spend it? Or if I spend it, what am I giving up? So this is a really important concept. Start to think about when you make any decision.
Hey, it's your host, Felicia Gopaul, and with me today is Mandy Herring, my co-host on the Her Money Story. And in our last episode, we talked about the Financial Foundations course that we both have a part in leading. And one of the golden nuggets that people often will talk to us about is this whole concept of opportunity cost. When I'm talking with past participants during annual reviews, they will often mention this was one of the most impactful things that we talked about, and one of the things that they took away from the course. So my co-host, as you remember, I was a former economics teacher. She loves this topic, and she has been lobbying me. I mean, lobbying me hard to cover this in the Her Money Story podcast. So sit back and listen to Mandy as we talk about and really dive into this concept and talk about why it's such an important thing. So, Mandy, I'm going to start with you because as we were preparing for this particular podcast, you shared a really great story about how you taught your high school students about opportunity cost. Would you share that with us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So day one of my economics class, I get a bunch of high schoolers who are taking this class just because they're supposed to. It's a requirement for graduation. So they're just coming into this class, don't know, don't care. They just know that they need to do this. And I start off with the most important lesson that you can learn when it comes to economics, and that's opportunity cost. And so I'm going to do this as thought experiment with you guys. So you go along with me as we do this thought experiment. Imagine that you're walking in the parking lot of a grocery store and you see $100 bill. And you bend over and you pick it up, and it's $100 that you got. You didn't earn it. All you did was just pick it up off the ground. So now you start thinking, what am I going to do with this new $100 that I got? All right. So imagine if you have a piece of paper. In fact, if you have one right now in front of you, write down 5 different things that you would do with that new $100. Not 5 $20 things, but $5 different things that you would do with this new $100 that you came across. And so, you didn't have to work. You didn't have to deal with a boss or a jerk client or anything like that. This is just $100. What are you going to do with this $100? And if you think about 5 different things that you would do with this $100, let me ask you, Felicia, can you do all these 5 things? Can you do all 5 things that you have on your paper there?
No, but I'm sitting there. I'm writing down. I'm trying to figure out what are my 5 things. I mean, there's so many things that I could buy, but in the world of the $100 in this thought experiment, yeah, I've come up with 3.
Okay.
And continue to grapple with 1 or 2 more.
Right. So even with those 3, can you have all those? Can you have all 3?
No, I cannot.
Right. You only have $100. You don't have $300.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, what I would have my students do is I'd give them a piece of construction paper and I have them trace their hand on the construction paper, just like you used to do in kindergarten to make that Thanksgiving turkey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then cut it out. And believe it or not, my 18-year-olds loved doing this. They're like, cool, this is something different. And cut out, okay? Now, narrow down your list to your top 2. So pick 2 things. And what you would do on your hand, what I had my students do on their hand is write 1 on one side of the hand and 1 on the other side of the hand. So I can tell you my 2. My top 2 would be paying someone to clean my house. That would be a nice treat to me, to pay someone to come just clean the kitchen and bathroom for me. Oh, that would be awesome. Or another thing I would do is get a nice mani-pedi. So I would put house cleaning on one side, mani-pedi in the other. What are your top two, Felicia?
Well, now I've changed it based on listening to yours. I had massage and getting my hair done, but I
Ooh.
think I'm going to do massage and getting somebody to clean my house. Those are going to be my two.
Oh, see? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Can you have both of those?
No, I
No.
cannot.
All right. So it comes down to decision time. Which one are you going to pick? All right. So here's the concept of opportunity cost. That $100 you didn't earn. Okay. It's what we do with that $100 and what we give up. And so what I would have the students do is pick one and then they'd put the hand up on the wall in the classroom. And so the thing that they gave up, go ahead and go with you. You've encouraged me. I pick the housekeeping thing. So therefore, my mani-pedi is now going up against the wall. Okay. But every time I look at that hand and I see house cleaning, I know I gave up that mani-pedi. So I didn't get that mani-pedi because I decided to get that house cleaning done. Where are you at? What do you think you're going to pick?
I just got a massage, so I think I'm getting I'm calling my house cleaning. Here's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Right
take what
after
you
we
want
do
about
this,
what our
I'm calling
yeah,
my house cleaning.
yeah. Yeah. So what does that say about us? If you guys come visit our houses, what our
Yeah.
houses look like right now? Yeah.
Yep.
So the true cost of something is what you give up to get it. And whenever we make any decision, it's not should I do this or not? Or not is not the next best alternative. And so when you think about making money decisions, don't just think about, or you might say to yourself, oh, I'll go on vacation when I have extra money, or I'll do that when well, we never have extra money. And so when you're thinking about making money decisions, it's not should I save or not? It's should I save or should I spend it? Or if I spend it, what am I giving up? So, this is a really important concept. Start to think about when you make any decision, what is the next best alternative? Because sometimes, like Felicia, the conversation Felicia and I just had, Felicia goes, oh, wait a minute. I didn't think about cleaning my house. That is a nice alternative. So, take that extra time next time you make a decision and stop and think, what is my next best alternative? And it really can open up a world for you.
That's so I love that concept. And I think it's easy for people to get inside of what an opportunity cost is. So that is kind of a great way to do economically to understand opportunity cost. But we actually have a definition, which is a financial definition of opportunity cost. And I'm going to read it so that I don't miss anything, which is anytime you give up a dollar that you could have otherwise kept, not only did you lose that dollar, but you lost the interest on that dollar. Not only that, but the interest on the interest called compounding interest. And this is a really important point, and one of the reasons why when I talk to my clients, they will be, I was thinking about this decision, but if I made that decision, not only am I losing, I've made a decision and the money is no longer available, but the money that I'm trying to use in the future for my future, for future me, means that won't have the time to grow. And so that has been a really powerful lesson for my clients, and they often will talk about it because Charles, who is the founder of our company, will say that he wants to be able to call you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and basically you're going to be able to repeat this definition. I'm telling you, I've got some people, they can probably repeat this at 2 o'clock in the morning when he's woken them up out of a dead heat because it's become such a powerful concept for themselves.
Yeah, and I'll say that, working with young people, it's a really, really empowering because with younger people especially, you're just starting financially or your parents don't have money and you might think it's really easy to fall into, well, I just don't have a doll. What does it matter? I just got to get by. But it's really empowering to think about that I have the power to grow my own money. And so I love that it's not the or not. That this is really empowering that I have control and that I can really be the master of my own wealth.
Yeah, people get really excited about that because one of the things that we talk about in the Financial Foundations course is we talk about the rule of 72, and many of our listeners know what the rule of 72 are. But when we talk about making an economic decision, like one of the decisions that I often will hear is I'm thinking about taking money out of my IRA, my 401k, my whatever to pay a bill or whatever it is that they often are thinking about doing, but it didn't pay a bill. But one of the things that I talk about is let's look at the implications of taking that $5,000 out at 25 and the impact that it would have had if you had kept it in over your lifetime of investing. And when they see those numbers, they're often like, "Oh my God, I'm glad I talked to you before I made this decision." Or the other thing is, "Oh my God, I wish I had talked to you or Mandy before I made that decision." That is something we often will hear.
Yeah, and when people ask me what do I do, and you've mentioned that, people you say that you help people when it comes to investing and behavior on their investments. I say that I help people find money. And if you think about your financial bucket and that there are probably some leaks in your bucket. There are probably some things in your financial bucket, things that you're doing now where you're losing money. And there's that if you give up a dollar that you could have otherwise saved or invest. And so part of my job as a financial coach is to help you find some of those leaks in your bucket and help you to be more efficient with what you have and maintain your current lifestyle. And that's something that's hugely empowering. That I'm not saying you have to sacrifice and cut back, but let's just take a look at where you could be more efficient. So let's talk about some of those financial leaks in our bucket.
Well, some of the areas of wealth transfer that we talk about, that well, oftentimes when we're talking that way about the lease in the bucket, we also use in the class, we talk about wealth transfer. And one of the leaks in the bucket for a lot of people is how they pay for their mortgage. We will hear and talk to people about who are committed to accelerating their mortgage, not understanding the economics of it and how that may not be in their best interest. But how you pay for your mortgage is certainly one of the places that is a leak in a lot of people's bucket. What's another one, Mandy?
How you handle your taxes.
Mm.
Oftentimes we focus on, getting a rate of return when it comes to investments or different financial tools. But how you handle your taxes is a really, it peels away at that wealth. And so if there's some things that you can do to be more efficient with your taxes, that's in essence a return. That if I can reduce my tax bill, then that is money that now I have to use towards something else, towards wealth building. And so handling your taxes is another big leak that a lot of people don't think about.
The next one is how you fund your retirement or qualified plans. That's a huge link for a lot of people because so much of their efforts are going into funding their 401ks, Roth, TSPs, or any of those sorts of things. So, how you fund it can make a huge difference. So, Mandy and I were talking about a conversation between recordings where I was talking about my husband and the fact that he was maxing out his 401k and he was putting it in the tax, in the deferred side of his, and the traditional side of his account. But I said, there's this other thing you can put it in the Roth side. And so my husband is an engineer, so you always got to prove everything with math with him. So I had to show him the lifetime impact that it would have on our finances, looking at putting it in the traditional side of his qualified plan versus the Roth side of his qualified plan. And again, that's an area that we talk about as part of the class. And if you decided to take the class with us, we would work through with you. Does it make sense for you to fund your retirement plans in a different way than you've been doing it.
Yeah, and speaking of your qualified plans, another one of those leaks in your bucket could be the way that you behave around your investments. And when I talk about investments, your qualified plans, your 401k, your SEP, that's all being invested into the market. And there's lots of advertisements out there about, oh, you could do some trading, you can do buying and selling of stocks and all different things within your IRA and so on. And so whether you are investing just in a qualified plan or you are trying to invest on one of those apps where you can buy and sell, that's a huge area where a lot of people are losing money, where they're trying to time the market, they're trying to stock pick, they're trying to track record invest. And so there is a whole behavioral science around the way you behave around your investments. And that's another big leak in our buckets, our financial bucket. What else, Felicia?
So the other area or another area is how you pay for yours or your child's education. I grew up in a household where there was no question about where about going to college. It was just what college are you going to go to. But how you fund yours or your kids' education can be really, really important. I talk to people who have invested in their education, and I believe that education is an investment. But how you pay for it is certainly a really important factor. Especially, you don't want to end up one of those people who has, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of student loan debt. So, one of the things that we talk about in our class and is a major source of a leaking in bucket is how you pay for your education.
The last one I want to talk about with you guys is what we call a major capital purchase. So this is something that you have to buy, and how you pay for something that you have to buy that you can't pay for with your monthly cash flow. So that could be a washing machine, that could be a wedding, that could be a major vacation. I want to share with you guys a story about my friends, Charles and Paul, and what they did when it came to buying a car. So, as I share the story with you, I want to share with you that these are real numbers. Charles and Paul actually gave me their car loan documents and everything to really help to demonstrate to you guys how how you pay for a major capital purchase can make a really big difference when it comes to building your wealth. So, Charles and Paul, one of the things that Paul worked for a lady who drove Mercedes, and she just loved riding in that Mercedes and told herself, one day when I make it, when I'm really earning some good money for myself, I'm going to buy myself a Mercedes. Well, in 2005, that time came. And so Paul was like, I'm ready. I'm going to buy myself a Mercedes. And her husband, Charles, said, I'd actually like to get a Mercedes also. So in 2005, they both decide to buy a new car. Actually, they both decided to buy a used Mercedes. And what I want to lay out for you is how they kind of started. So Charles and Sobal both have $50,000. So Paul's got her own money. She's an independent woman. So she has $50,000 and Charles has $50,000. Um, they both have $25,000 in their individual emergency funds. And then they each have $25,000 in their respective investments. And they both decide to buy a car. Charles decides to buy a used 2001 Mercedes Benz, and that Mercedes Benz costs $31,500, and he bought it in 2005. So it's a relatively new, like 4-year-old Mercedes Benz. So Paul does the same thing. She buys a 2001 Mercedes Benz convertible. So she buys a little bit more bougie one than he does. So it costs about $10,000 more. Hers is $41,500. And she gets out a car loan for 60 months. And the car loan interest rate was 11.25%. So the question is, who do you think made the better financial decision? Was it better to pay cash for the car like Charles did, or to finance the car like Paul did? Well, we don't know until we look at their numbers. So let's look at their numbers. Charles pays cash for his car. So that means that he has to completely drain his investment so that he takes that $25,000 out of his investment. So now he's at zero with his investments. And then he has to drain from his savings. So he has a paid for car and he has $18,500 in his emergency fund. And being a responsible person, he decides he's going to pay himself back a car payment. So he starts putting $744.45 each month back into his savings account. And so Charles thinks, I'm smart here. I am avoiding paying that interest and I'm paying myself a car payment instead of the bank. Well, so Paul takes out her 5-year car loan, and her car loan was $744.45. That's where Charles got the idea of how much to pay himself. So Paul still has her $25,000 in her investment. And we're just, for the sake of this conversation, we're going to assume she's making 7% on her investments. And then she has her emergency fund. She pulled out a little bit for a down payment. So now her emergency fund is down to $17,397.75. Okay. Now, what happens during this time is that her $42,000 continues to earn compound interest. So that money is still in her accounts and it's continuing to grow and earn interest. And she has access to that money at any time. Well, in 2008, we all remember what happened in 2008. We had the financial crash. So here we are in 2008. Now, who do you think is going to be in a better financial position in 2008? Charles or Paul? What do you think, Felicia? Who's going to be in a better financial position? Or what would you think?
I've seen this before. I know that so Paul is going to be in a better financial position, but it is contrary to the way that most people think.
Yeah, so like someone like me who's always been a saver, if I were looking at this, I would think, well, Charles is better off. He paid cash. He's got a paid for car, and he doesn't have a car payment during this financial crash. But let's take a look at their numbers. So Charles has a paid for car and he's been paying himself a car payment. So his emergency fund is up to $27,052.73. So not bad. He's got a nice little emergency fund going there. But let's take a look at Paul. So Paul has 24 months left of car payments. And she's got $17,924.92 in her savings, and her investment account has $30,626.08. So if you're Paul and 2008 crash hits, you've got some options for yourself. Even if she were to lose all of her income, she could use money from her savings or her investment to make the car payment. She could go ahead and trade the car in, sell the car. She could pay the car off. So Paul has put herself in a position where she has a lot more options available to her by simply having that car loan. Seems counterintuitive, but let's continue with the decision here. All right, let's move to 2010. All right, so Paul has paid off her car now. All right. So she had a car loan that was $33,597, and she was paying 11% simple interest on that car loan. So after 5 years, she has paid $10,232 on that car loan. Now, if you're a saver like me, you're going, yikes, she just paid an extra $10,000 to have that car. But that's not the whole story. Remember that her investments and her savings continued to earn interest during this whole time. And that same $33,000 that was in her investment has been earning 7% interest over this 5-year period. So she earned a total of $14,031 in interest during the same time period. She paid $10,000 in interest, but earned $14,000. So she's ahead. So Paul, during this 10-year period, maintained control over that $33,000, and continued to earn interest. Let's fast forward to 2021. Now, in 2021, both Charles and Gopaul decided, okay, we're done with these cars. We're ready to trade them in. So if we look at this 15-year period, and let's take a look at the financial positions of where Charles and Gopaul are. So in 2021, Charles has a paid off car. He's got his $25,000 emergency fund back, and he's got $164,331.23 in his investments. Pretty good. So Paul also has a paid off car. And remember, she had a nicer car than he did. She has her $25,000 emergency fund and $192,329.05 in her investment. So during this 15-year period, Paul had a nicer car. She had control of her money over all 15 years and is almost $28,000 ahead of Charles in her investments. So for those of you who are savers, your mind might be blown right here, right? But if we really think about these numbers, this is something that is extremely powerful. So Felicia, what has been some reactions that you've gotten when I've shared that story with people in the course?
Oh my God, this was a game changer for one of my clients. She was just like,
oh, and by the way, let me explain when I say course. We offer a financial foundations course. If you're interested in signing up, please go to hermoneystory.com. We also did an episode about this, a previous episode. So go back and look for that video about the financial foundations course. Sorry, go ahead, Felicia.
That's okay. No, I would say that this was a game changer for one of my clients because she's a super saver like yourself, and she's always paid cash for everything. And she was just like, she started to kind of go back in her life thinking about, oh, I could have saved money here. I didn't have to pay off that then. I didn't have to. How much more would I have had if I hadn't made all of those decisions? And so, I mean, it's really back to this whole opportunity cost conversation, which is oftentimes, one of the things that you were talking about is is shitting on yourself. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done that. And it's not just financial decisions, but it also is in relationships. We do it. We make money mistakes. And you always talk about the sunk cost. Could you talk a little bit more about the sunk cost as part of this conversation about opportunity costs?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the idea of a sunk cost is that, anything that you've paid in the past, it's gone forever and you can't go back and get it. So it shouldn't play any role in your decision making going forward. For me, learning this story, my personal mistake I made was the mortgage mistake. I got super motivated to pay off my mortgage as quick as possible. And now I kick myself when I think about what else I could have done with that money and the interest that money could have earned. Charles, that I just shared with you, he to this day still will kind of go and I want to continue that math out there until I die and realize that that's all this money I lost. But we need to move forward. And so anything that's happened in the past, it's in the past, it's gone forever. It should play no role in what you do moving forward. And I think that's really important when it comes to looking at opportunity cost. Let's move forward. I have $1 in my hand today. What can I do with this? What's the best thing I can do with that dollar today to build wealth for me in the future? Doesn't matter what I did in the past. It doesn't matter when I charged that credit card in the past. I can learn from that and move forward, but anything that happens in the past is sunk. It's gone forever. Don't even worry about it. Move forward.
To take this conversation, I think that was really great information and seeing the visuals of how you kind of walk that through. I know there's probably some women geeks on here who are going to be questioning your math, but I know you and I know your math is good. But the thing is, but for simpler things, I often will
Mhm.
have people who are trying to make a decision between should I put money into my retirement or should I pay off my credit cards? That's a simple decision that a lot of people are grappling with, which kind of still works in this world of opportunity cost. And you and I are kind of and girls as opposed to an or girl. And so I tell them, I don't want you to do one or the other. I want you to, if you have the resources and you can do it, I want you to do both. But certainly, one of the things that is a opportunity cost conversation is should I do put money into my retirement plan or should I pay off my credit cards? And as I said, if there's a way that you can do both, I'm going to encourage you to do both. What's another area that perhaps people are grappling with?
Oh yeah, I was just going to add on to that as far as like it just goes to show that it's all connected. You know,
Yes.
that what is the next best alternative, but you know that it's all connected. And you know, as a saver, I always thought that I have my emergency fund and you don't touch that. You know, and there are some opportunity costs with that. So if I have too big of an emergency fund, I'm losing out on some interest opportunities there by having too much sitting in my bank account. That I need to have the amount that makes me comfortable, but there are some trade-offs, and I think that goes into what we're just, you know, what you were asking is that, you know, save or invest, and we say and what is the right amount to have in an emergency fund? You know, in general, it's 3 to 6 months of expenses, you know, but it's also a comfort level for people. You know, I have a special needs daughter, so I'm probably going to make my emergency fund a little bit more because, well, you know, I have medical bills with her and things like that. So, you know, having an emergency fund, but then not going too far with that so I don't lose out on some of the opportunities to earn some more compound interest.
Well, I think that that's important, especially in recent years where interest rates have been higher. The interest rates that are paid on savings accounts has been higher than it's been in the past. And there's a bunch of you, I know our listeners are sitting on a ton of cash, you know, and
Yeah.
it's beyond your 3 to 6 months, but you like getting that 3, 4, six
Mhm.
percent rate of returns that you were getting rates. Now that rates are coming down, you're probably at least considering um, doing something, deploying your money in a different way. But when the interest rates were that high, I know it was challenging talking to you, trying to get you to do something else other than because savers like guarantees. It's just like
Yeah.
I am guaranteed to get this 5% or whatever it is that they're paying on paying in interest. But then remember, we also talked about inflation. Inflation is something that I think sometimes people don't necessarily always think about because we were having experiencing 7% inflation and you've got making five. So basically you're losing 2% every single year keeping that much money in. So again, if we can shift in the way that you're thinking about the reserves that you have put aside, then we know we're making a big difference in your life. But it's
Yeah,
sometimes
and
hard to get you to think in a different way than the way that you've been thinking.
yeah, and you know, I hear that sometimes with my clients when it comes to real estate too. You know, that they think that I want to own a tangible asset like a piece of real estate, and that if I own something I can see and touch, and there's opportunity costs and there's trade-offs with that. And you know, we a couple of our different leaks in the bucket: taxes when you own real estate, as opposed to investing. A lot of people get nervous about investing because they view it as speculating and gambling. And so understanding that there is a scientific way to invest and that stocks are one of the best ways historically, and I mean historically going back to 1926. So lots of data to keep up with inflation. So there's lots of opportunities just opening your mind to an understanding. And that's something that you and I both feel very strongly about is that, you know, not just hopping on some train of, oh, I should just invest, but that you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it along the way.
Yeah. All of that is really, really important. So, you know, I'm thinking, what's my takeaway from today's podcast? I would say that really the takeaway, I loved your story, your hand story to explain opportunity cost. I'm stealing it, I'm using it all the time. I would say that that was my key takeaway from today's podcast. What was yours, Mandy?
Really thinking about the conversation of, like you were saying, the and that sometimes we get ourselves in these absolutes, or us women with our spaghetti brains, we overwhelm ourselves with too many ands. And sometimes just breaking it down to what's the next best alternative really can bring some clarity and peace of mind. And that's something that I feel very strongly about, is that I want to have peace of mind when it comes to my money and investments, and I want my clients to have peace of mind when it comes to what they're doing with their money. So I hope that something that we talked about today has brought you guys some peace of mind. And if you're interested in attending our financial foundations course and working directly with myself or Felicia and being coached through that class, please go to hermoneystory.com and sign up for our financial foundations class. So until next time, thank you for joining us.